manners, they cost nothing. Car Obsession is proudly supported by Carly and Draggy. Check out the video description to find out the latest discount codes. We live in a world where everything is going up right now and value for money is increasingly harder to find. So surely getting a well kitted out car for a sensible amount of money is impossible, right? That's not the case if you're looking at this, the brand new Suzuki S-Cross, a crossover that won't leave you cross over the price tag. See what I did there? Crossover. Let's move on. Now, to help demonstrate the value of this car, I need some numbers. The brand new S-Cross is refreshingly simple because it has just two trim levels, Motion and Ultra. Ultra is the one I have here, by the way. The Motion has a starting price of £24,999, whilst the Ultra has a starting price of £29,799. Both cars come with quite a lot of standard, so I need some help from VoiceOver Aaron. Even though the Motion is technically a base model, there's nothing basic about its features, as it offers 17-inch alloys, LED headlights, smartphone connectivity, traffic sign recognition, blind spot monitor, rear cross traffic alert, 7 airbags, adaptive cruise control, keyless entry, heated front seats, dual design climate control, as well as front and rear parking sensors. That's all as standard. However, if this happens to be a bit minimalistic for your liking, you can of course have the Ultra, which is what I'm testing here. This adds 17-inch polished alloys, leather seats, navigation, panoramic roof, a 360-degree camera, as well as Suzuki's all-grip select all-wheel drive system. The choice of trim levels is simple, and so is the choice of engines because, well, you can only have one. It is the same engine that is actually used in the Suzuki Swift Sport, a 1.4 litre turbocharged petrol. It offers 129 horsepower along with 235 newton meters of torque. Normally at this point I will talk you through the performance, but in a car like this it does seem to be a little bit redundant. So let me focus on something more important. Fuel economy. The S-Cross can offer up to 52.3 mpg on a combined run with CO2 emissions as low as 120 grams per kilometre. Now it is worth noting I've got the Ultra trim level, therefore I've got the all-grip all-wheel drive system as standard, and as an option, which is £1,350, I also have the 6-speed automatic. That means the fuel economy falls down to around 46 mpg on a combined run, and the CO2 emissions are 139 grams per kilometre. Now I've had this car for around a week, and in my experience I've been averaging around 45 mpg, so pretty close to the official stats by Suzuki. Not too shabby. As mentioned, this car is powered by a 1.4 litre turbocharged petrol engine, which is aided by a 48 volt mild hybrid system. Even so, the performance is far from electrifying, yes, pun intended. But to be fair, this is meant to be a no-nonsense, practical, value for money family SUV, so you don't really need a bucket load of performance, do you? But in case you're interested in such matters, this particular car with the all-grip and the 6-speed automatic will crack 62 miles per hour in 10.2 seconds, which may seem rather pedestrian, but in the real world it is quite nippy. I wouldn't go so far to call it fast, but like I say, it doesn't need to be. It's not that kind of car. Now, in case you're really wondering, the top speed of this car is 121 miles per hour. Now, thanks to the 48 volt mild hybrid system, the 235 newton meters of torque is available as low down as 2000 RPM, which is a good thing because when you rev this car out, it is quite boomy and the soundtrack is quite coarse. But thankfully, you don't really need to do that because the power is available quite low down in the rev range. Speaking of noise, i.e. the engine being boomy, the refinement of the S-Cross isn't the greatest. You get a sense that there's less sound deadening compared to its rivals. The road noise and the wind noise is quite pronounced, and when you drive on the motorway, if you've got passengers in the car, you will need to raise your voice a little bit, or if you want to listen to your favourite tunes, you will need to crank the stereo up a little. It's far from deafening, but if you want a more hushed ride, a more hushed driving experience, then you will need to look elsewhere. Comfort, on the other hand, is pretty decent though. The chassis has got a softer setup to it, meaning it helps to soak up most of the bumps, and it will take quite a large divot, pothole or imperfection to really disturb the cabin. Having said that, you do hear the suspension working from time to time, but yeah, for the most part, this is a comfortable car and these seats are rather supportive. The downside of having a softer ride is the handling. Now, Suzuki's normally quite fun in the corners, but this has got a fair amount of lean. I don't know if it's because I've been spoiled by a lot of performance cars this year, but the S-Cross just doesn't feel quite as fun as other Suzukis I've driven. Some of the character, some of the DNA feels like it's missing a little bit, which is strange when you bear in mind this has the same engine as the Swift Sport, but something about this car isn't quite as fun as other Suzukis I've driven. I had the Vitara S a while back, which again uses the 1.4 litre turbocharged engine, and that was quite a hoot in all honesty. This car on the other hand though, just feels, I don't know, just a little bit plain Jane. I think some of that has to do with the 6-speed automatic. To be fair, the auto works pretty well. The changes are pretty sharp, they're fairly smooth, and you can leave it to its own devices and it's not really troubled too much unless you put the engine under quite a lot of load. Then the engine is a little bit the gearbox is a little bit indecisive about which gear it thinks it wants or needs. But apart from that slight hiccup, the 6-speed auto, to its credit, it works well enough. Having said that, I think I'd probably prefer the 6-speed manual. I think that'll just help to give better engagement, involvement with this car. Put simply, if you're looking for a family SUV that's going to be a bit sharper, a bit more keen to drive, then this might not be the car for you. You're welcome. Manners, they cost nothing. The steering is light, which will make it easier to manoeuvre around town, but the drawback is there's very little in the way of feedback or communication. You don't really get a proper sense of what the front wheels are doing, which again, I know it's not that kind of car, but some of you may be wanting a family SUV that's, quite good to drive, and for the most part the S-Cross is okay, but there are better cars out there for that kind of thing. Whilst the Suzuki S-Cross is fantastic value for money, the boot is a little bit disappointing. Now, with a capacity of 430 litres, it's by no means tiny, but it does lag behind its rivals. Therefore, if you want a bigger boot in this sector, you will need to look elsewhere. Having said that, it's far from disastrous. You've got some nice handy features, such as a height adjustable boot floor, and when you have the boot floor set to its highest, you have a very minimal load lip into the vehicle, meaning loading bigger, heavier items or perhaps dogs should be easier. You've also got a hook on the left hand side, a 12-volt socket on the right hand side, and a storage bin on either side of the boot as well. If you want more space in this car, you can of course fold down the 60/40 rear seats, and the rear seats do fold pretty flat as well, which will help with practicality and versatility. So overall, the boot isn't the biggest in its class, but I would argue it's still very usable for everyday family life. When it comes to rear space in the Suzuki S-Cross, it is a mixed bag. As always, the driver's seat has been set for me. I'm 6'2", so I am of course a taller chap. Let me step inside and make myself comfortable. Now, as you will quickly see, I've got plenty of knee room and leg room, and that is very impressive. Look at that. Look, I've got acres. I can really stretch out and relax. The downside though, as I'm sure you've noticed, is headroom. Now, the Ultra trim level, as standard, does come with a panoramic roof, and that has eaten into the headroom. And in fact, the headlining is eating my hairline. Not very good at all. Now, to be fair, for the majority of you watching, I'm sure your headroom in the back will be better. I'm a taller person, so unfortunately I have to pay the price for being blessed with height. Now, if you are a taller person like me, then of course you will want to shotgun the front passenger seat. Now, fitting 3 adults into the rear I think will be too much of a squeeze, but if you're more concerned about carrying children, then of course it almost goes without saying this car comes with ISOFIX points. Now, if you're concerned about how easy or difficult it is to fit a child seat, well, Mrs. Car Obsession fitted a child seat to this car earlier in the week and she said it was very easy, so hopefully you'll have no problems. Now, in regard to practicality, it's pretty good in the back, although the lack of charging functionality is a bit disappointing. Okay, you do get a 12-volt socket within the centre armrest, but it would be nice to have something here for the rear passengers to use. But anyway, in regards to practicality, the door bins are of a good size. I can fit in this 500ml bottle, like so, no dramas whatsoever. In the middle, as quite a pleasant surprise, I do have a centre armrest for added comfort, and as you can see, I've got 2 more cup holders, so I can pop the bottle in like so. I don't get a map pocket in the back of the driver's seat, but I do get one in the back of the front passenger seat, as well as a hook either side, so if you wanted to hang up an item of clothing, you can do so. But like I say, there's no charging ports in the back, which is a little bit disappointing. Thankfully for me, getting comfortable in the front of the car is a lot easier. Now, of course, this is a cheaper car, therefore you don't get any electronic adjustments for the steering wheel or indeed the seat, but getting comfortable and getting a good ergonomic driving setup is a doddle. For those cold winter months, you'll be pleased to know that as standard, even on the base model, you get heated front seats. Anyway, let me park my bottom like so. Now, as I mentioned, getting a good ergonomic driving setup is easy. The steering wheel has got plenty of adjustment, both rake and reach. Very, very handy. And the driver's seat has also got a good level of adjustment. Now, in regard to practicality, that's pretty good in the front of the S-Cross. The door bins are of a good size. I can fit in a 750ml bottle, and I've got a bit of space left over. I've got a small cubby hole to the right-hand side of my right knee, so you can pop some smaller items out of sight, out of mind for some added security. We've got a little cubby hole here where you can pop your smartphone when you're using the smartphone connectivity. You don't get a wireless phone charging pad as standard or as an option, but I'm sure for this price point you wouldn't really expect that for this type of car. 2 cup holders in the middle which are square. They aren't the best shape, and for certain bottles, for example this one, when you're driving about, it does move about a little bit, and it's it's not as well designed as it could be. You do get storage underneath the centre armrest, so you've got space in there for a few snacks, and you've also got a 12-volt socket in there as well. Sunglasses holder up here, very handy. And last but not least, you do get a glove box which offers a fair size. Overall, the interior quality and materials isn't as high as its rivals, but you do need to bear in mind this is a cheaper car. There has to be some compromises made here and there. Overall, the cabin isn't a bad place to be. It's just a little bit humdrum, perhaps a little bit plain, but Suzuki has tried. So you've got some glossy black detailing here and there, some nice silver, some anthracite detailing, and you've also got this kind of faux leather patch on the dashboard as well as the leather seats and the panoramic roof. So yeah, it's not the most luxurious cabin, but overall for the price, it's pretty acceptable. The S-Cross comes as standard with a choice of driving modes. I've got a little dial down here. Twist it to the left, I get snow mode, which as you can see I don't need today. There's a button in the middle, push it and you get auto, or you can twist the dial to the right and you get sport mode, all of which are pretty self-explanatory. You do also have a lock mode as well if you want to do some more serious off-roading, although to be fair, if you want a Suzuki SUV that's got the go anywhere capability, of course you'll want to have a look at the Jimny, if you can get your hands on one, of course. Let's move things away from the actual driving sensation of the car, because I'm sure a lot of you are more concerned about how easy it is to drive or fuel economy. Well, let's cover the ease of drive first. The S-Cross is a very easy car to get on with, particularly with the 6-speed automatic. It's not exactly a massive car, but you do have plenty of parking aids in case you do need some assistance, it's easy to manoeuvre, it's got a decent turning circle, visibility's good. So if you want a practical family SUV that's easy to drive, particularly with the 6-speed automatic, then yeah, this is a car that's worth looking at. Regarding fuel economy, well, it's pretty good. So normally this car would offer up to 52.3 mpg, and CO2 emissions are as low as 120 grams per kilometre. But I have the all-grip model with the 6-speed auto, as I've mentioned a few times now. Therefore, the fuel economy does tumble a little bit. So on a combined run instead, you're looking around 46 mpg, and the CO2 emissions are 139 grams per kilometre. Now, I've had this car for almost a week now, and I've been averaging around 45 mpg, so very close to the official stats stated by Suzuki, so that's really good. I believe that there's a full hybrid version of this car coming, so be sure to look out for that. Now, as much as this is a mild hybrid, you can't drive it on EV only because it's a mild hybrid. It's not a plug-in or a full hybrid. It's the hybrid system is really there just to aid the 1.4 litre engine and to make this car a bit more efficient and of course a bit greener. You don't really notice the system doing its thing. You will notice a little battery icon pop up when you brake, because of course the regenerative braking is putting energy back into the battery that would otherwise be wasted, and we don't want to waste energy. That's no good for anyone, is it? The new Suzuki S-Cross may not be as chic, fashionable or as trendy as its rivals, but it will certainly make your bank balance look better. This is an honest family SUV that's bursting with value and will appeal to those who are looking for family motoring that won't cost the earth. Okay, the lack of engine choice and the smallest boot may go against this car, but if that's of no concern to you, then the S-Cross is definitely worth a look. A big thank you to Suzuki Cars UK for loaning me this car for the week, and of course a massive thank you to you guys watching this video. I do hope you have found it useful or enjoyable. If so, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. If you are subscribed, don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified every time I make a video. But until the next time guys, be sure to keep up the car obsession.